The Legend of the Snowman. Despite warnings, a group of curious teenagers dared to test the legend on Christmas Eve. Confident it was a myth to keep kids from wandering, they laughed off the stories. Flashlights in hand, they ventured into the quiet, snow-dusted woods. Their breath fogged in the icy air as they ventured deeper, voices becoming whispers in the thickening silence. In a remote, snow-blanketed village, children were warned never to wander alone into the forest during Christmas. Tales of a mysterious figure, called the Snowman, haunted the village for generations. People whispered of his presence in the dense woods, his pale form blending with the winter landscape. Over the years, children had vanished without a trace, leaving nothing but footprints, ending abruptly in the snow. The deeper they went, the more the atmosphere changed. The temperature dropped, and an eerie stillness settled around them. Suddenly, they noticed enormous footprints beside theirs, too large and deep for a person or animal. Nervous laughter faded into silence, and their feet slowed as the once friendly woods began to feel unsettling. Every shadow seemed to stretch toward them, every gust of wind carrying whispers they couldn't quite make out. Someone suggested heading back, but curiosity and a hint of fear drove them further. Then a distant crunch echoed, as if something heavy was following close behind, sending chills down their spines. They shone their flashlights but saw only snow and shadows. They stopped and turned to each other, feeling the tension grow. Nervously they continued forward, hoping the sound was a figment of their imaginations. The next moment, one of them caught sight of a tall, motionless figure between the trees. Cloaked in white, it seemed to stare directly at them. Fear spread quickly among them as they realized it resembled the snowman from the legends. Panic broke their courage, and they began to retreat, trying to retrace their steps. But every direction led them deeper into the forest, as if the path home had vanished. The snowman appeared to glide closer, his steps silent, his pale form almost glowing in the dim light. The laughter was gone. All that remained was the quiet murmur of terror as they stumbled backward. Each step away seemed to draw them further into the forest, not closer to safety. The snowman's dark, unblinking eyes seemed fixed on them, watching with an intensity that drained their hope. Desperation turned to dread, as one by one, they felt as though they were walking into a trap, ensnared by an unseen force that blocked their escape. Finally they turned and ran, hearts pounding, stumbling through the snow in sheer terror. But every glance back revealed the snowman moving closer, his gaze cold and unyielding. Their steps faltered, each running harder than they ever had, the figure ever closer. They tripped and fell, snow spilling around them as their limbs grew weaker with fear. Just when all hope felt lost, they saw the edge of the forest, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Fueled by desperation, they stumbled forward, feeling the snowman's stare burning into their backs. They burst into the clearing, collapsing in relief as the silence of the forest seemed to swallow the shadow behind them. They turned, expecting the snowman to emerge, but the forest was empty, silent. Relieved but shaken, they whispered a vow of silence, knowing no one would believe their tale. Yet every Christmas, new footprints appeared along the forest's edge, chilling reminders of the snowman and his quiet, haunting presence. The gift that wasn't meant for me. As the dreams became more vivid, he noticed odd glances and strange familiarity with places he passed. Feeling like a stranger in his own life, he inspected the gloves again, noticing faded initials stitched inside. Curious, he researched the name and discovered it was a distant ancestor, a man notorious for his dark pursuits. Rumors painted him as someone who'd tried to live beyond his years. One chilly Christmas Eve, a man alone at home discovered a strange package on his doorstep. The small, neatly wrapped box bore no note or sender's name. Intrigued, he brought it inside, shaking it gently, but it was silent. He carefully unwrapped it to reveal a pair of finely crafted leather gloves. He slipped them on, noting how perfectly they fit, but a faint tingling spread through his hands, making him feel uneasy. That night, unsettling dreams plagued him. He found himself in places he'd never visited, among strangers who seemed oddly familiar. His surroundings were blurry yet vivid, and his hands tingled as if they were acting of their own will. Each morning, he woke disoriented. feeling as if he'd spent the night somewhere far from home. But every time he dismissed it, the sensation in his hands grew stronger. This ancestor had left a legacy of dark mystery, stories of attempts to transcend life itself. Realization struck. The gloves were more than a family relic. They might be a connection to his ancestor. As days passed, he felt his own thoughts blurring, as if the gloves brought another presence into his mind. Dark impulses surfaced, thoughts that felt alien, as if his hands were drawn to actions he didn't control. Desperate, he sought an old friend who practiced in the supernatural. She listened with a pale face, warning him the gloves might be a conduit, a link to a restless spirit seeking another chance at life. Horrified, he realized the gift might have been meant not for him, but for the soul who sought to use him as a vessel. Determined to end the nightmare, he fought to remove the gloves, but they tightened around his hands, resisting every attempt. The more he struggled, the stronger the tingling grew, turning to a burning sensation that reached his bones. Panic gripped him as he felt the whispers of his ancestor's voice grow stronger, filling his mind with cold, foreign thoughts. In desperation, he forced the gloves off and threw them into the fireplace. They burned with a strange, greenish flame, releasing a thick, dark smoke. As they burned, he felt the whispers fade, the presence lifting. He sank into his chair, exhausted but relieved, feeling a calm return to his mind. That Christmas was unlike any he'd known. Alone, he sat quietly, free but deeply haunted by the ordeal. Every year after, he felt a faint chill, as though his ancestor's shadow lingered, a reminder of the gift that was never meant for him and the dark soul that had almost taken his life. The old Santa in town, one curious teenager decided to follow him, intrigued by his strange appearance. Hidden in the shadows, the boy watched as Santa walked, his footsteps heavy, his movements slow. Unlike past years, Santa didn't greet anyone, moving like a figure lost in thought. A chill settled over the boy as Santa wandered toward an abandoned house at the edge of town. In a small town, Christmas brought a peculiar tradition, an old Santa who roamed the streets, handing out sweets and toys to children. People looked forward to his visits, yet there was an unspoken rule: avoid him if you see him alone. This year, the town Santa seemed different. His face, usually jolly, looked gaunt, his smile stretched unnaturally, his eyes vacant, like he was looking past everyone. As Santa entered the old building, curiosity pulled the boy closer. He crept up to a cracked window, peering inside. There, Santa sat in a dusty chair, surrounded by photos of families. His heart pounded as he noticed familiar faces, including his own family, frozen in faded pictures. Fear clenched his stomach as he realized these were photos from years past. The boy backed away, desperate to leave, but a creak sounded behind him. Santa stepped outside, his eyes cold and unblinking. Frozen in terror, the boy watched as Santa's face twisted into a sinister smile, his voice a chilling whisper. "I've watched you all for a very long time." Panic surged through him as he ran, not stopping until he reached home, locking every door behind him. The next morning, he tried to warn the townsfolk, but they laughed it off, dismissing it as a prank. Yet every Christmas after, he felt eyes on him in the crowd, glimpses of that eerie Santa in the corners of holiday gatherings. Each Christmas season, he'd glance over his shoulder, half expecting to see the unsettling figure standing nearby. Years passed, and he grew older, but the memory remained vivid. Leaving town, he thought he'd escape the haunting memory. But every Christmas, he'd still feel a chill, sensing a figure watching, hidden in the shadows.